I think being a female founder, especially building in women's healthcare, of course, there's sympathy, but there's an element of empathy that comes with that. And
Mm.
it isn't something that you can manufacture. You've either lived with that or you haven't. It's really game changing for the end product.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unison Community Podcast. Today we have our first founder here with us, Deanna DeFelice, and she is an accomplished professional in the CPG sector. She is well experienced with domestic and international supply chains and direct-to-consumer business operations with a passion for mission-driven brand building, strategy, and innovation. Currently, Deanna is the founder of Ovease, where she's developing wearable heat for menstrual pain, thoughtfully designed for comfort, confidence, and ease. So, Deanna, thank you for being here today.
Hi, Gabby. It's so nice to see you, and thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have a founder in female tech with us today. We've been seeing a lot of innovation in the space, and I'm glad to see it's growing. And so it's super exciting to talk to someone who's an early stage founder and kind of really going through it and jumping through these hurdles. So let's just jump right in. What gap in women's health did you feel wasn't being addressed? And then how did you validate that that was also an issue for other people too?
So Ovease was born from my personal experience with very debilitative and chronic period pain. My symptoms really ranged from physical agony to fainting spells and even panic attacks. And I found that the best thing that worked for me was having that old school heating pad, the really big ones that you have to plug into the wall and just lay down in bed with. And although it was really great because it provided the relief that I needed, I found that I still wasn't able to go out into the world and show up in the way that I needed to. My plans were always canceled. I was always calling out of work, and it was just a cycle month over month. And so as a consumer, I just started looking on the market for products that I could find that were more mobile and on the go, and that would arm me with the support that I needed that I get at home, but I get to still show up in the world. And the more that I looked on the market, the more I found that products either weren't discreet. I would order these heat belts and they were really bulky under my clothes. And you could clearly tell that I was wearing some sort of apparatus under my shirt. I found that they weren't size inclusive and they wouldn't comfortably fit around my waist. And I thought, if they're not going to fit around my waist, there's so many other women who are probably dealing with this problem as well. And lastly, I found that every product on the market targeted your lower stomach. And although that's true, pain was in my lower stomach, it also radiated to so many other places. It was in my back and it was in my legs. And so I thought, I want a product that actually fits me, is actually comfortable and effective, and actually targets where I need relief the most. And ultimately, I decided to build what I couldn't find on the market and design around all of those pain points. And how I validated that this was a problem for others as well. This is something that I've lived with since as long as I can remember. And I had to get very comfortable talking about it really early on because of how disrupted my days were and how bad my symptoms were. I had to tell my family about it. I'm one of five and I have four brothers. And I find the irony in that I'm building a period product and I have all boys in my family, but I had to get really comfortable letting them know about it so my family could keep an eye on me. And so I developed those skills early on to have that transparency. And following me through my career, I just kept up with that and talking to as many women as I can who have been experiencing the same pain points as well.
I think it's so interesting how at the end of the day, it's really basic. Like, you just want women to be able to live their lives. And I mean, I love a heating pad myself. Even if I'm not in pain, sometimes I'll just use it. It's very comforting. This is just a tool to help people live their lives regularly. I mean, the idea of not having to call out to work, cancel plans sounds amazing. And, just being able to take this on the go and travel with it, definitely excited to see something that's a little bit more um, dis, uh, discreet. So,
Yeah. At home, I love
mhm,
to have my big heating
sure.
with a cup of tea. But unfortunately, I can't bring that out with me, and that was sort of
Right.
the launching pad for designing the product.
I love it. So, with that, women's health, it's often, underfunded, misunderstood. How have you navigated skepticism or pushback when pitching your idea?
Yeah, periods are, of course, a very personal thing, and there's no one universal experience that everyone has had with period pain management. And with that, people navigate what works for them, whether that's certain products that they use for period pain management, or whether that's changing their diet that week, exercise habits, sleep patterns, etc. And ultimately, I think humans are creatures of habit.
Mm.
And that is a piece of pushback I've received is, people figure out what their routines are, what works for them and what doesn't work for them. How can you be sure that women want to adopt a new product in their lineup? And how can you make sure that there's a willingness to learn a new product? And I think that's really valid criticism. And the way that I've navigated that is I've come to accept that this product and this brand will not be everything for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. There are some women I know that have said to me, Deanna, I get really bad migraines and I take a few ibuprofen and I'm good. I don't have body pain at all. And that's amazing. And I
Mm-hmm.
envy them, but I don't want that for them, of course.
Right.
There's another subset of women that say, I do deal with body pain, but I do these certain physical exercises and it kind of alleviates it on its own. And that's also great. There's another subset of women that I kind of chalk it up to it, if you know type of group
Mm-hmm.
who I have spoken to who are as equally desperate for a product on the market that they haven't seen, who have equally experienced such debilitative pain and are very willing to try what's out there. And
Mm.
at the end of the day, those are the group of women that I'm catering to the most, who are very willing to integrate something into their routine because nothing before has satisfied them.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm wondering, did you find out this information through focus groups or was it surveys or what was the method in which and then the other question I have, just out of curiosity, did these women in this third group that you just defined, did they have something in common, a similar diagnosis, or perhaps thinking that they might have some sort of either endometriosis, adenomyosis, something of that nature?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gabby. It was both. It was focus groups and surveys. There's a survey I have on my website that has received 500 responses. Majority of whom I don't know them personally. So people have navigated to the website and organically, have filled out the survey, which has been incredibly helpful. It has also been focus groups, one-on-one conversations with women, and also just networking and going to
Mm.
various women's health events and just having very honest conversations. And to that subset of women who have experienced the same, they have also voiced fainting spells and nausea and getting sick, and also pain in areas of the body that aren't currently being addressed. In fact, so spot on to what I've experienced that it's this journey has been very therapeutic for me as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I have felt so isolated in my experiences, and month over month I would be so debilitated and at home, and I couldn't go out and live, and I would feel like I was the only one. And
Mm.
through these occasions, it's been so validating to learn that I'm in good company.
Well, that's really interesting that you say that because while we were talking just now, I was thinking about, I'm lucky enough where I don't really have debilitating symptoms, and I'm very grateful for that. But through this experience, I've also learned that so many other people do. And I think it's just interesting to see that the expectation is that you don't share that with people and you act like everything's okay all the time and you go to work and figure it out. You go to your gym, you keep up to your routine like you said, and the expectation is we're not going to talk about this. I'm okay, everything's okay, but inside I'm in pain. And so I think that's where your product, in my mind, fits in. It's like, okay, if I am expected to operate that way, then like at least having the comfort in a portable way is really nice. So that's really interesting, that concept.
Yeah, yeah, and it's month after month, and it
Right.
takes up so much of your life. And on my being a solo founder, on it doesn't come without its challenges. And on my more difficult days, I think back to that 17-year-old, 16-year-old version of me who was fainting in her high school nurse's office, and um, it dates back a very long time. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to build a brand, but I wanted it to be meaningful and I wanted it to help people. And it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that I thought, okay, this is that natural synergy of it's a problem I know so intimately and something that will help hopefully many women.
On that note, then, what was the final straw that was like, okay, I'm doing this. I have to do this. Was it a good time in your career? Was it, just seeing the problem over and over? What was kind of that final straw for you?
That's a great question. So I had come up with the idea of Ovies and I had sat with it for about 12 months. Um,
Okay.
I had been silently working on it, and I had told my inner circle, I had told my family and a few close friends, but I wasn't quite ready to make it public just yet, because it's a lot of reflection and it's a lot of mental
Mm-hmm.
tennis back and forth of do I or don't I do this. And I ended up coming across a listing for applications that were due for an early stage accelerator program that was catered to underrepresented founders. And the accelerator program was out of the Cambridge Innovation Center here in Cambridge, Mass. And applications were due, I think, the next day.
Oh,
And
wow.
when that came through and when I saw it on LinkedIn, I thought, okay, rarely have I seen accelerator programs that are designed solely for early stage startups and
Mm-hmm.
underrepresented founders. I qualified for in both of those boxes. So I thought, okay, I have to at least give myself a shot and submit some type of pitch deck. So I had a working logo on Canva and I put together a pitch deck and submitted it and answered some qualitative interview questions. And then I met with the team and spoke with them. And somehow I was accepted into the program. And in that moment when I was accepted, I thought, okay, for the first time, I've received external validation that
Mm.
people see value in what I'm trying to build. It's not only me who sees value or my loved ones who sees value. People who there's no emotional or personal connection to me understand what I'm trying to build here. And it was a 3-month program. And I thought, you know what? It's worth giving a shot and figure out if this is something I want to move forward with, whether it's Ovies related and perhaps I don't get the reception I am hoping for. Or maybe in that 3 months, I learn professionally for me, maybe this isn't the next career move that I want to make.
Right.
So it was a really nice 3-month program of just navigating both of those things. And in that 3 months, I learned that there was really good reception to the product and that this was still something that I wanted to move forward with as a career move.
That's really cool that that program exists. And I feel I've been seeing more grant programs and resources for female and underrepresented founders in both women's health and other fields. So it's kind of an exciting time for sure. Um, it's, and it's great to hear that you had a good experience. I also just have to say that I love the name Ovease. And I'm wondering
Oh,
how you came up with that. And was that like before the program? Did it just kind of come to you? Did it take a lot of thought? What was the thought behind that?
thank you for asking. Nobody has ever asked me that. Um, no, actually, Ovies was the first thing I thought of for the company.
Okay.
I had an idea of the product in my mind, but I knew the name. Ovies is a play on words of ovary ease.
Hmm.
And the fabric of the brand is to provide ease to women. So there's a double meaning in there, both physical ease and mental ease. And it's a little silly of a name, but I think it is memorable, and
Definitely.
I kind of ran with it. Yeah, I analyze a lot and think a lot, and I naturally gravitate toward the more creative side of the business. But that
Okay.
was something that I really didn't do on for too long. I kind of I liked it, and I just went with it.
I love that. I feel like so much of this is fate too. Like the fact that you saw the application the day before, the name came right to you. I feel like this is a sign that good things are to come. And so, with that, just curious, like, where are you in the process? Could you explain that to people? And then also, what exciting developments can we expect in the more near future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very excited to announce that Ovies is launching its first waitlist campaign this spring. And this is a really exciting time because this is the first time that potential users are actually going to see the product and how it looks, and what its functionality and practicality is. And so I'm working diligently to launch that first waitlist campaign. And that campaign will also help inform when our official launch date is. Of course, I want our launch to be as timely as possible, but also making sure that I'm providing the highest level of quality that I can
Hmm.
possibly deliver. And so those two things are a little dance. It's quite the balance of finding the right manufacturing partners that I can be confident in that are going to help me deliver that high quality. And it's a really fun, exciting time for the brand. It's gaining a lot of momentum, and reception has been so positive, and I'm just so excited to have the ability to show people what this product is. So that waitlist campaign can be found on our website ovies.com, as well as the Instagram page Ovies Official and our LinkedIn page.
Amazing. I'll be sure to link that in the episode description so people can find that. And we talked about this previously, but I think it's really cool that you're, having the opportunity to navigate the finding the right partners, like who's the right manufacturer and stuff like that. Seems like a really cool learning opportunity because obviously everything around us is kind of manufactured in that way, or furniture or whatever. So I feel like it'd be really cool to get the behind the scenes
Yeah,
on that. So
definitely. You have to be very humble because you learn a lot. And I've never built a product from the ground up before. So it's
right.
been a really honest education in manufacturing 101.
Well, I know. And when we were talking about it, I kind of was just like, wow, I'm so impressed that she's figuring this all out on her own. I feel like I would be very stressed about like, how do I find the right partner? Where do I even start with this? I mean, there's a lot on the internet, but you never, you never know
Ooh,
what's the right way to do it. And so I was just so impressed with you kind of navigating that. And you're on your own, right? I mean, you don't have a business partner or anything.
no, I don't.
Okay.
It is a solo endeavor, but with that, it's it is challenging. But what's nice is because I'm on my own,
Hmm.
it gives me the flexibility to obviously approach things. It gives me the space to make mistakes and to learn and to have these um, moments of pivoting and having
Hmm.
to get some roadblocks and start from scratch and start over. It gives me the grace and the space to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of with that, I mean, What has surprised you most about building a product in the women's health space? And then how do you approach designing something that is a little bit personal, like you mentioned, and more emotionally resonant for women?
Yeah. The two things come to mind that have surprised me the most. The first has been how willing women have been to share their stories with me.
Mm.
Um, I expected it from my personal circle. I expected some feedback from my network, but the amount of strangers who I have spoken with, who, when given the forum, are so willing and eager to share in their experiences. I mean, Gabby, you know all too well with Unison and what you're building and the
Mm-hmm.
community you're building as well. When women have the environment to, to be very honest and transparent, they take advantage of that. And that's been a really pleasant surprise at how much reception there's been. The second thing that's been surprising is the early validation I've received about the product. Not across the board, of course, it's not a greenlit situation for everybody who
Mm-hmm.
hears about it. Majority have, there's been a resounding excitement, whether it's women my age, women younger. I have four nieces that I talk to, and even women that there's been a number of women I've met at network events that weren't even necessarily for women's health care, just at network events who I've naturally talked about the product.
Right.
And they have said, oh my goodness, my daughter would love this. She needs
Yeah.
this product. And it's been incredible, that affirmation. But with that, it also is a little daunting because when people are so excited about it, of course, there's a responsibility to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good problem to have, but those have been two things that have jumped out to me. And approaching something that is emotionally resonant with women, the fabric of the brand was born because of my emotion of feeling so isolated, my
Mm-hmm.
emotion of feeling incredibly vulnerable month after month, and also generally just being discouraged by the lack of what was on the market. So, you know, there's a lot of strategic decisions you have to make in business. And for me, being as authentic and genuine about my experience really wasn't one of them. For me, it was a non-starter of this is how I want to present my brand, because how can I expect potential users to have buy-in to the product and the brand if the founder is not being 100% transparent about her own experiences?
Right.
Um, it might be cliche, but being as authentic as I can be has been my approach in resonating with other women.
That makes so much sense. And I think the good thing about social media is that we are getting more insight into the people behind the product. I think that that is a really important part of things now for the consumer. I feel like before we weren't really hearing about who the CEO is or what they're doing or what their story was behind it. It felt a little bit impersonal. So I really like that point. Yeah, well, we know your story and there's a reason you are passionate about this for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And then going back to some of the feedback you received, was there any kind of surprising feedback that you didn't anticipate? And did that help shape the product in a specific way or in a way you didn't really expect or force you to take a different path or pivot in a certain way?
My experience with pain has been the most difficult for me to navigate. And all products on the market, when you think of a period pain management solution, they're all designed for your lower stomach. And
Mm,
while that's true, there's, of course, pain in the stomach, but it's also in the back. And for me, the most radiating pain has been in my legs. However, I didn't know if this was unique to me. I didn't know if it was, I call it a Deanna problem, and perhaps there's no real need. Um, and no one else has any idea what I'm talking about with that. And there wasn't anything that I never even saw it in conversation. Not only that there weren't products addressing it, but no one ever talked about it. So
Mhm.
when I was designing the line, I had a SKU in mind that catered to the legs, but I put it on the back burner because I wanted to validate that other women were experiencing this as well. And in those focus groups that we had mentioned, in that survey I had mentioned, so many women told me, my leg pain is so excruciating. Thank you so much for bringing it up. And
Yeah.
they say, I've never seen anything to address it. No one's ever brought it up to me. And that was validating in and of itself. And then I saw a pattern that many of these women live with endometriosis.
Okay.
And that naturally made me start researching a little bit more. And 1 in 10 women in the US have endometriosis. 190 million women worldwide live with it, 40 to 50% of whom report weak legs and severe pain in the legs.
Oh, wow.
So having these conversations was so validating to me. And I said, okay, taking that SKU off the back burner, putting it in my first launch. It's not something I wanted to launch down the line in a version 2 of the product. It was something I wanted to launch with out the gate. And that led to the SKU that I call the support shorts, the Ovease support shorts, which are undershorts that are buttery soft, four-way stretch that have modular pockets on the front of the thighs that you can insert and remove our cordless and discrete portable heating pads into them. So that feedback affirmed a SKU that I had to add and one that I'm actually the most excited to launch with.
That's so exciting. I guess I was also operating under the assumption that you kind of just had one SKU. So you how many products are you coming out with? Like, can you explain that a little bit more too? And for the wait list, is that all of your products will be eligible or just one or
Yeah, great question. So right now we're launching with 2 SKUs. The
okay.
first is the Comfort Camisole, which has modular pockets in the lower stomach and the lower back. And those come with their own set of the Ovease heat sheet, which are very discreet, flexible heating pads that are USB rechargeable and that you can insert and take out as you need. It's personalized pain management.
Hmm.
And then the second SKU is the support shorts. That is, and both of the garments, the camisole and the support shorts, are made of that second skin type of fabric that
Yeah.
I wear anyways in my own life. I always have a camisole under blouses and the shorts under dresses and skirts. So it's it's what we've seen before, just in a more
Hmm.
innovative.
That's really cool. It's exciting to kind of be able to visualize it a little bit more too, because I know we've kind of talked about it at a high level. So um,
Yes.
that's great. And then what do you think people are kind of misunderstanding about the women's health market?
I think women's health is still often seen as a niche market. And women make up, of course, 50% of the population. And despite that, I think the number is 2 to 4%, only 2 to 4% of VC funding is invested into women's health startups. And so the juxtaposition of those two stats, I think, illustrates how disproportionate the gap is between the market opportunity and the level of investment that women's health is receiving. I'll also add that there are so many areas of women's health that aren't one time occurrences. If I more specifically focus on what I'm building in is period pain management. And of course, this is something women manage month over the course of decades.
Mm-hmm.
And this this creates opportunity for repeat engagement with a product, and in turn causes longer term value for a company. And I think that longer term value and that repeat engagement is oftentimes underestimated in women's health.
Definitely. I mean, I think that like aligns with the trends I've been seeing. I mean, what do you think is more specifically the most overlooked opportunity in women's health right now, I guess, other than just the market sizing side of it?
Yeah, this answer will probably come of no surprise given the corner of women's health I'm building in. But I think historically, periods in general have been very under researched, and more
Mm-hmm.
specifically, period pain management. I do think we are turning a corner. And I think there's even been really good progress in the last 5 years. I think it's more mainstream conversation and more awareness of it. Um, I can, though, give a small example. It wasn't until I was building Ovease that I learned that period pain had a medical term for it, and that term is dysmenorrhea. And I never knew that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I am the perfect candidate to have known that, but it's not in the vernacular.
Right.
Colloquially, we say, my cramps are so bad. I can't
Right.
go out today. Or, oh, she's having bad cramps. She's going to skip out today. And that's just what conversation has been. So it's a small example, but I was floored to learn at almost, at the time, 30 years old, that there was an actual term for it. And um, most founders, you don't really want to see the market that you're trying to penetrate. You don't want to see that get too saturated.
Mm.
Um, the way I look at that is there's still so much space in this market that I'm trying to enter,
Mm-hmm.
and um, there's room. And when I see other products on the market who are in a similar boat as I am, I get really excited by it, because
Yeah.
the more options we see, that means the more innovation is taking place and the more research is happening too.
That's really interesting. And just when you were talking about this, first of all, I just learned that term right
Mm.
now. So great. Good to know. But there's only one brand that comes to top of mind when I think of period pain, and that's Midol. There's so many brands when you think of any other kind of category, but I think historically it's just been Midol. It's interesting that that's been the one company. Hopefully soon we'll have more brands that pop up in our minds with that category. Where do you see the femtech landscape evolving, and where does Ovease sort of fit into that future?
Yeah, definitely. I think where products are evolving is, I think now they're more interconnected systems. What I mean by that is now you're seeing products with both a hardware and a software element to them.
Mm,
um, that makes it a very seamless experience for the user. We're all so reliant on our phones and on digital tools. And I'm seeing a lot of products in femtech moving to that landscape of having both a hardware element and then app support to go with it.
mhm.
When you think of, there's different fertility tracking products or various monitoring wearables, that's kind of the standard.
Right.
Is users kind of expect to have that added software element to the product. And that's exactly what Ovi's goal is. And we sit at the intersection of hardware and software. So we have the heating pads, and then we have the Ovi's app that is that personalized pain management, where it's your app to discreetly pull out and you can temp control the modular heating pads as you need them. And the goal there is to have, a product that's up to date with what the landscape looks like. When I was designing the product, I I did have one moment where, at least for version one of the product, I considered for, I think, all of a few hours, I considered foregoing the Bluetooth element
Mm,
um, at the first launch, simply because it's more difficult to implement operationally. It's more costly and
right.
um, harder to manufacture. And I think I slept on it one night. I woke up the next morning and I redlined it with myself and I said, absolutely not. That it's the easier approach, but
Hmm.
it's not how I want to represent the brand out the gate. This
Hmm.
is a premium wellness product and it needs to be innovative enough to play in that arena. And the whole ethos of the brand is ease and
Hmm.
discreet. And
Right.
I think you sacrifice that a little bit if you have manual buttons that you're pressing, versus just having your phone and being able to sit in a meeting and shut off your pads, turn them on, or control them.
Totally. And that's the concern that popped into my head without the app. It's kind of like everyone's always on their phone, you're not going to notice. And just being able to leave the pads in and turn it off feels huge, and the discrete aspect of it. So I think it's interesting to hear these thought processes and what's going on behind the scenes and in the brains of founders on that. What do you think female founders kind of role in reshaping the healthcare experience for women? I think we see categories where period trackers and stuff like that where there are male founders, which is totally fine, but just curious, I guess, specifically, what difference can female founders make and how do you think they're going to shape this industry?
When you have female founders building for women, especially in healthcare, I think it takes out so much of the guesswork because most often founders are building from their own lived experience. So you
Hmm.
understand so intimately what the problem is. And with that comes a product that's so much more practical and functional because, of course, you have to do market research. That's inevitable, but your baseline is you've lived with the experience. So you have so much closer of an idea of what women will actually want to see. I think being a female founder, especially building in women's healthcare, of course, there's sympathy, but there's an element of empathy that comes with that. And
Mm.
empathy isn't something that you can manufacture. You know, you've either lived with that or you haven't. It's really game changing for the end product. I'll also add that when you see female founders who are building in healthcare and otherwise and other industries and they're building for problems that they are trying to solve, I think that causes a really positive ripple effect for aspiring founders who have an idea for something and want to move forward and they see other women paving their own path to build solutions, and I think it can be a really good source of inspiration too.
That's such a good point that I have considered in other, like, representation, in other ways or in other industries, but I honestly didn't consider, oh yeah, a female founder in femtech, that's going to just drive more people to innovate in this space, want to become founder, other females like wanting to become founders. So I'm glad you brought that up because I honestly had not thought of it, but no, that's really cool. And I will be honest, something that we have been kind of challenged with or finding kind of challenging is building trust, in this space. Women's health is very complicated. I think we sometimes lose trust with ourselves, with our bodies. We lose trust in systems. We may have felt dismissed in certain cases. And so just wondering, how do you navigate like building trust with women in this space? And, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think building trust, I look at it as a two-pronged approach. The first is talking to your potential users as much as
Mm.
you can and making it really clear and known to them that their feedback, their input, and what they want to see in a product really is the North Star for shaping and defining what that product is. This way, it's also showing that your brand is not a transactional one, but it's a relational one. It's a
Mm,
two-way dialogue between the founder and their potential customers. And as a solo founder, I don't have a traditional team around me to bounce ideas off of and get feedback, whether it be positive or negative. So I really leveraged the community that I've built with Ovease to be that sounding board for me. I think talking plants the seed of trust, but I don't think talking alone is enough. I think the second prong to building trust is in really good execution.
mm,
If a woman has my product and she has a really positive experience with it, and she's experiencing the highest level of quality that I could deliver, I think at that point, that's when trust is earned. You can have the most creative marketing and excellent messaging, but ultimately your brand is only as good as your product is.
yeah.
So I think if you balance both talking to your customer and then executing their feedback, I think that's the recipe for building the most amount of trust you can.
I think that's perfectly said. Just going forward, what kind of impact do you hope Ovease will have on women and like how they experience their health journeys long term?
Yeah. My number one mission is to provide ease to women's lives. So much so that it's in our brand name. And that includes physical ease and mental ease. So if my product alleviates women's pain in their bodies through the warmth of our technology, and they know that they have a product in their back pocket that they can rely on, that arms them with the support that they need to go out into the world and show up to our
Mm,
obligation that we have to, and gives them an element of control back.
yeah.
And if I can also provide mental ease of taking away the anxieties that I have lived with month in and month out, and women not needing to pull out their calendars and count out the days and say, okay, I have to move this around and I have to cancel this meeting. If my product can arm them with the support to provide this ease, then I think I've accomplished what I've set out for.
Mm.
That's my long-term goal for Ovies, is just to arm women with the support that they need to take control back.
That's such a good point. This aspect of providing the mental comfort
Mhm.
as well as the physical comfort, which I know you mentioned before, but really just thinking about not having anxiety about living your life, not having anxiety about not having a solution or backup plan if pain does hit. That's just so valuable. And just not having to think about one more thing in life that's been something you've thought about for years, for months, for however long. I love that idea of just being prepared, knowing that there's something that will provide comfort, and just the knowing sometimes is enough. The mental aspect is huge too, for sure. And then pivoting just a little bit back to this concept of being a founder, what is, if we could end with just advice you would give other women looking to start a business, especially in the healthcare space, but doesn't have to be specific to that either?
The advice I can give is all based on my mistakes and my learned experiences. So I would say, if you are passionate about something and you have an idea that you think is really valuable, but you're looking for clarity on whether you should move forward, whether that's clarity for yourself of, is this the next career move I want to make? Or even clarity for the product, will the market be receptive to it? I encourage aspiring founders to not think and think and think to the point of fatigue, because
Mm,
you won't reach clarity in that way. You're only going to reach it by executing and by jumping in
yeah.
and starting. Whether that's for better or worse, you will learn when you do, but you won't learn
Mhm.
when you analyze until the point of fatigue. You won't get the answers you're looking for out of hypotheticals. I would also say, if you decide to make the leap, to give yourself the grace to make mistakes.
Mhm.
First time founder for the first time, and to learn, because when you make mistakes, that's a launching pad to know better. And when you know better, you do better. And just accept that you won't be perfect the first time around, or even the second, third, or fourth company you found. It's an unrealistic expectation. And in terms of healthcare, if there's a product that you want to build from your own lived experience, I would just say to trust yourself and remember that you are the subject matter expert in that area because you've lived
Mhm.
it. And, it takes courage and it takes some self belief. But, if any self doubt creeps in, I would just suggest that you reframe any self doubt to, why not me? Why can't I be the person to bring a solution? Um,
Right.
because I promise there are so many other women who are silently living through the same problems that are hoping somebody like you takes the leap to build a solution around it.
That was amazing. I feel very inspired after hearing that. I mean, even just what you said about you are the subject matter expert because you've lived it. I mean, yeah, why haven't we've talked about this before? Why aren't we subject matter experts? We've lived it. So interesting, so powerful, so thoughtful. Thank you so much for that advice. I hope people hear it and take it and then just go create, just go do it, go execute. We're looking forward to hearing your story. So just go do it.
You are qualified.
Yes, you are qualified. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you so much, Deanna, for being here today. We're so excited to see your product come to market. I will again link your website and Instagram to this episode so people can join the waitlist if they're interested, and looking forward to see Ovease grow and how things go.
Great. Thank you so much, Gabby. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on, and I really enjoyed our conversation.